Okay, picking up where I left off with tweet 146. Look at tweet 145 and then tell me we're all done here. As I and others have saying, this report is the very beginning of the longest stage of the Trump-Russia story. I'd be much more comfortable with the idea that 147 that no one listed here knew they were trumpeting Russian propaganda if Trump hadn't been told by Papadopoulos per Mashburn in spring 2016 that the Russians were messing around for a presidential election. This sure looks like Stone was in constant contact with the campaign about WikiLeaks and was trying to determine if Trump knew about it. There are fewer redactions in the GRU section, hacking, than the IRA section, and notably most of the redactions are based on investigative technique. Info on Stone's contact with Goose for 2.0, 150. 151, I have to candidly say that nearly all of this information is in Proof of Collusion, which I published in November 2018. I believe readers of that book will agree with me so far, but we're only on page 50. Bob Mueller is not training up entirely new categories of evidence. 152, one thing that is unmistakable from Mueller's evidence is that WikiLeaks was indeed a pass-through from Russian military intelligence. It will be very interesting to see, therefore, what the feds do with Julian Assange once it gets stateside. That could be a whole new saga. So much what I see trending on the news today, each example given Flynn working with Peter W. Smith to find Hillary's emails, is in Proof of Collusion. There was a whole chapter called The Hunt for Emails that detailed everything the news is called Breaking Today. Sheesh. 154. Wow, Mueller establishes that the whole Seth Rich storyline concocted by WikiLeaks, pushed by Sean Hannity, was a concerted effort by WikiLeaks to hide that it was working with Russian military intelligence, going to break from law speak a moment and say Assange is hosed. 155. It took 5 hours from Trump saying Russia if you're listening until Russian military intelligence hacks, seeking exactly the material Trump had asked the Russians to provide. I seem to recall from law school that willful ignorance isn't a defense to aiding and abetting. 156. Trump was offering Russian trillions of dollars in unilateral sanctions relief to no benefit to the U.S. on July 27, 2016, when he asked Russians to hack for him. Then they did so, understanding that this is what media refers to when they speak of a quid pro quo in plain view. What the GRU sought to hack after Tresh's Rump, if you're listening comment, was a site it had never hacked before, seemingly confirming it was hacked in an effort to please Trump / respond to his request at a time he was offering the Kremlin's trillions in sanctions relief. 158, okay, we just got to Trump campaign contact with WikiLeaks, and it's almost all redacted. As I predicted, as so many of us predicted, 159, it's hard to tell, but it appears Manafort spoke to Trump about WikiLeaks, which would be huge news, as it underscores how in the loop he was. This news would also make sense, as Stone, Manafort's longtime business partner, was apparently the campaign's link to WikiLeaks. 160, and by in the loop on WikiLeaks, I'm referring to Trump, of course. 161, okay, this is big. Trump knew more about the timing of WikiLeaks releases than Gates, as he informed Gates of the timing. That's incredible, as Gates was Manafort's deputy co-conspirator. So how was Trump in the loop and Gates not? Because Trump was in touch with Stone. 162, I'll say again, we're going to do this thing right here. Journalists who are on page 300 of the report 30 minutes in are not proceeding carefully and methodically. We're on page 54 here, but we're getting it right and being deliberative here. We will cover everything here. 163, wondering why oddball conspiracy theorist Jerome Corsi claimed to have a joint defense agreement with Trump because they spoke on the phone 6 times. No wonder Trump's legal team, their fate was tied to Corsi's. So why not indict Corsi when Mueller threatened it? 164, wow. Trump advisor Ted Malloch really sounds like a liar in this report. He says he never contacted Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, but he sure as hell seemed confident about passing on WikiLeaks intel to Corsi after Stone asked Corsi to ask Malloch to contact with Julian Assange. What the tornado of redactions surrounding Trump WikiLeaks contact establishes is that the Stone trial this fall will be the event of the season. Anyone who thinks it's just going to be about lying, not collusion, hasn't read the report or seen its Stone-related redactions. Wait, what? 166, 167. My God, these guys were thirsty to get illicit help from WikiLeaks / Russia. 168. It's hard to know how much of this report to discuss here, as nearly all of this content is in my book. So many readers of this feed have already seen it. For instance, I could discuss Stone's Henry Greenberg incident here, but readers for Proof of Collusion know about it. 169. Another person who sure sounds like a liar in this report, which is no coincidence as he sounds like a liar in real life too, is Michael Caputo, who gave the FBI an account of setting up a Stone meeting with possible Russian cutouts that didn't jibe with other intel. 170. Okay, so now we're getting into it. Trump followed Russia, if you're listening, July 2016, with a direct demand to his staff to procure stolen materials. Public evidence shows so much preceded Trump's demand also, but apparently this is when he got involved. 171. My research suggests that Mueller has it wrong, that Trump made this demand before July 27, 2016, as the Peter W. Smith effort that Flynn coordinated with began in June 2016. And Flynn is the man Trump first ordered to get Clinton's emails. Either way, this is damning. 172. So yes, the research on Peter W. Smith that I have in Proof of Collusion, August 2019, contradicts Mueller's claim that Smith began his efforts only in July 2016. Mind you, Smith didn't even say that before he died. He acknowledged beginning his work far earlier than that. 173. This is significant because even if Smith began the project on his own once Mike Flynn became involved, it's hard to imagine that happening without Trump also being in the know. So the idea that Trump demanded Flynn find the emails only in late July is suspect timeline-wise. 174. Here's what's a bit frustrating. Mueller says no one Smith mentioned being in contact with on the Trump campaign as he sought to get Clinton's emails on the dark web from Russian hackers initiated or directed him, an allegation no one ever made. But what about assisted? 175. Smith can't be charged with attempting to procure stolen property because he's dead. But it's unclear from the report if at any point Flynn's involvement in the escapade acted as an assistance of Smith. And again, there's never been an allegation he initiated or directed him. 176, Mueller reveals Eric Prince paid money to assist Smith's efforts, and we have some indication from other reporting that Flynn's network may have helped Smith secure funding for his effort to solicit illegal in-kind campaign donations from the Russians. Why isn't that a crime? 177, it's an illegal end to receive campaign donations from Russia. Also, it's collusion. Eric Prince and possibly Mike Flynn took an act in furtherance of that end after being in contact with Smith. That's precisely what a conspiracy to engage in a collusive crime looks like. 178, this may be one of those instances in which Mueller had substantial evidence of a collusive conspiracy, but not beyond a reasonable doubt. Here, simply because Peter W. Smith is, well, dead, and under somewhat suspicious circumstances, that's so far from full exoneration. 179, Mueller establishes that Smith listed Corsi and docs related to his dark web campaign, creating the first official link between two of the four efforts, the others being Schmitz and Stone's Trump World made to illegally recover stolen property and campaign donations from Russia. 180, here's the first spot where Mueller is definitely wrong. We know the name of the hotel and the date Smith met with Russian hackers. In fact, more than one hacking group in separate meetings, major media reported. Mueller says he did not establish such meetings occurred. 181, I want to make a note here on Smith. Several weeks ago, I erroneously used the word task to relate Flynn to Smith, which isn't how I described the relationships in either of my books, even though it's close to how Smith represented himself to the others. That was an error. 182, what we do know now is that Trump tasked Flynn with getting Clinton's emails from Russian hackers a crime, and that Flynn was subsequently in substantial contact or already had been with Smith, a fact I discussed briefly in my first book and much more in my second one. 183, I find it odd Mueller used display interest as a euphemistic phrase to describe the Trump campaign's relation to stolen materials couldn't legally receive because doing so would be a crime on two fronts. They did far more than display interest, as the report shows. 184, I'm at page 70 now in a pretty responsible amount of time. I think about the couple hours. This is where the section on Trump-Russia context truly begins, and it's the most important part of the whole report. In my estimation, the obstructions section is largely public info. 85. The first issue is Mueller's framing. He asked if Russia's provide assistance to the campaign in exchange for favorable treatment, which is a good way of saying did they commit crimes, because they knew Trump would be giving them good policy, which we already know is a yes. 186. So what Mueller was looking at was there a tactic/express agreement to have Trump give Russia good policy in exchange for aid to his campaign? Oddly, and it's as an allegation no one has really made. The question is whether he aided and abetted Russia after he knew of its crimes. 187. So say Trump created a historically pro-Russia foreign policy, trains and unilateral benefits to Russia with no purpose for the U.S. to help business deals in Russia. Then Russia started helping him, and he learned that and kept helping them, including more crimes. 188. Mueller asked if there was a before the fact agreement. I'll give you good policy if you hack/propagandize the election. No one alleged that, but Trump created a corrupt policy Russia rewarded with election aid, and Trump then rewarded that with continued financial promises. 189, under federal law, if you have knowledge with high likelihood a crime is occurring, you can't do anything to induce its continuation, including financial inducements that can't be explained on any basis, but you wanting the crimes to continue occurring. That's what happened. 190, Trump made clear he wanted the crimes to keep occurring. He made clear his sanction policies had to be secret. Didn't benefit the U.S. at all. His aides secretly negotiated sanctions, knowing they weren't licensed to do so. It's unclear if Mueller looked at this. 191, I'm a bit thrown here. Trump began discussing Trump Tower Moscow with the Agalovs way before the 2013 Miss Universe pageant. They announced the deal at the pageant. I don't know why Mueller says they began discussing after the pageant. That's widely wrong. 192, it's bizarre. Mueller relies wholly, it seems, on Don Jr.'s testimony, which portrays his father as being uninvolved in the project. In fact, it was Trump who was the chief negotiator of the pageant, and Trump who struck a letter of intent deal with Aris Agalarov himself. 193, Trump and Agalarov even announced funding for the deal via Sberbank, SBER Bank, just 10 days following the November pageant, after Trump met with Sberbank in Moscow with Agalarov. So why does Mueller say that Jr. and Emin were the chief negotiators, and it all happened in December? Let me tell you why this matters. There is evidence that Trump spent the pageant talking politics with the Russians, including Russia policy, while he was setting up this business deal, which would establish his Russia policy was corrupt from the jump of legal importance. Moreover, if Trump was receiving money from a Kremlin-owned bank while not only talking politics with Kremlin agents, but at a time he'd already decided to run for post, we got the beginning of an illegal quid pro quo. Don Jr.'s false testimony elided all these facts. Sorry. 196, part of the issue is that Mueller is lacking any political timeline here. For instance, Trump accepted an arrangement for Agalarov, a Kremlin agent, the same week Trump was telling New York State Republican officials he was going to run for president. That matters. 197, Mueller says Trump-Agalarov negotiations trailed off in late 2014 after a year and never left the planning stages. So why did Sberbank publicize funding for the project in mid-November 13? Mueller's discourse on the Agalarov deal is really stunningly weak and inaccurate. 198, why would a Crocus Group executive be writing an email about Trump bailing out of the Trump-Agalarov project in September 2014 if, per Mueller, there wasn't anything to bail out of except an idea still in the planning stages? See my book or David Corn for more on all this. 199, wow, in September 2015, Trump explicitly authorized Cohen to pursue a Moscow tower deal with Rozov. That means everything Cohen did after was authorized. Not a lark, he kept bringing back to Trump to see if he could be interested. Of course, he later signed an LOL that fall. LOI. 200, if you have any doubt that Trump knew his secret business deals with the Russians were seen by the Russians as a proxy for his foreign policy toward Russia as president, and therefore had that knowledge when he learned Russia was aiding his campaign via crimes, read this. On September 24, 2015. Skiladza sent Cohen an attachment he described as a proposed letter to the mayor of Moscow from Trump.org, explaining that we need to send this letter to the mayor of Moscow, second guy in Russia. He's aware of the potential project and will pledge his support. And a second email to Cohen sent the same day. Skiladza provided a translation of the letter which described the Trump-Moscow project as a symbol of stronger economic, business, and cultural relationships. between New York and Moscow, and therefore United States and the Russian Federation. On September 27, 2015, Rutskilatsa sent another. 201. Or consider this email except from Felix Sater, Trump's longtime designated agent / rainmaker in Russia, reflecting Sater's understanding of how the Rosov deal should be and was being understood by the parties. Donald doesn't stare down. He negotiates and understands the economic issues, and Putin only wants to deal with a pragmatic leader. A successful businessman is a good candidate for someone who knows how to negotiate. Business, politics, whatever, it all is the same for someone who knows how to deal. 202. I'm continuing forward now with searchable version of the report. You can find it here. Mueller report, WikiLeaks, Donald. What? Oh, this is from Scrib.com. The 203. There's so much in here that's difficult to know how to work with. Mueller credited Cohen's claim that Trump never spoke with him of the political implications of a Trump Tower Moscow deal, even as Trump told Cohen his candidacy was an infomercial for his business. 204. Moreover, everyone involved in the Trump Rosov Tower project, and it's clear that included Trump, believed Putin had to personally sign off on it. So Trump's candidacy, by his own words, was an infomercial for Putin. Why would we conclude anything else? 205. Here's what many don't get. If Trump's Russia policy was from the start compromised by his Russian business deals, he can't be president. For counterintelligence reasons, it's literally that simple. No president's foreign policy can be beholden to a secret business deal. 206. Mueller revealed Ivanka linked her dad's lawyer up with a Russian national close to Putin who used code and emails with Cohen, our person of interest, in referencing Putin, who Ivanka's contact said he could get Trump a secret meeting with. But yeah, no political implications. 207. Jesus, read this. In July 2018, the office received an unsolicited email purporting to be from Urchova, in which she wrote that at the end of 2015 and beginning of 2016, I was asked by my ex-husband to contact Ivanka Trump and offer cooperation to Trump's team on behalf of the Russian officials. 7/27/2018 email. 208. Trump's team. Anyone think that means the Trump org rather than Trump's campaign team? No. So as of fall 2015, Russian government was explicitly trying to link up to the Trump campaign to talk about business deals for Trump. And what did Trump do? Express interest. Mueller's a great investigator and a great attorney, but many Americans are going to draw different conclusions about Trump's conduct than Mueller did, because Americans are like juries. Literally, as juries are just citizens, they don't always see things like prosecutors. 210. The reason is Mueller has to see everything in the lens of beyond a reasonable doubt evidence, while Americans deciding if Trump's foreign policy is terminally compromised or more likely to use a preponderance of the evidence, 50.1% standard, which is more appropriate. And indeed, counterintelligence doesn't use the beyond reasonable doubt standard, but it is more likely to use levels of confidence for which 50.1% proof of someone being compromised would be considered a grave national security risk, which is what Donald Trump is now. 212. Holy crap, read this from a Russian woman who has, it seems, disappeared from contact with the SCO, and for all we know, disappeared generally. Urchova to Special Counsel's office. The email claimed that the officials wanted to offer candidate Trump, quote, land in Crimea, among other things, and unofficial meeting with Putin, In order to vet the email's claims, the office responded requesting more details. The office did not receive any reply. Putin Lieutenant Peskov's top assistant called Trump's top assistant Cohen via private line, not governmental, though she was calling on government business permitting for a tower. You think she realized the conversation was illicit? Cohen certainly did and lied about it. Remember, all of this is during the presidential campaign. Wow, Trump's personal assistant gave Trump's passport to Trump's lawyer to send to the Kremlin. And look at this email from Cohen proving that everyone involved contrived a plot, call it a conspiracy, to turn bribery, an impeachable offense, into a plausible business deal. Please call me. I have Evgeny Dvoskin on the other line. He needs a copy of your and Donald's passports. He needs to scan off every page of the passports. Invitations and visas will be issued the week by VTB Bank to discuss financing for Trump Tower Moscow. Politically, neither Putin office nor Ministry of Foreign Affairs cannot issue invite, so they are inviting commercially / business. VTB is Russia's two biggest bank, and VTB Bank CEO Andrei Kostin will be at all meetings with Putin so that it is as business meeting, not political. We will be invited to Russian consultate this week to receive invite and have visa issued. 216. So Putin would show up to secret meetings with Trump in Moscow, but as he'd be accompanied by businessmen, it's plausibly be business related, not political, even though all the private exchanges addressing the tower make clear it was very political. Trump is compromised. No, the bank that Kremlin offered to Trump was sanctioned. So if Trump wanted to do business with them, he'd have to remove sanctions. Wow, this is so ham-fistedly obvious. Trump and Putin to meet secretly about getting Trump a tower. He needed to lift sanctions to get. Side note, so far the only thing I can identify that was wrong in proof of collusion was that I, like everyone else in media and Cohen, thought Klokov was a weightlifter when that was a different Klokov. If you read proof of collusion, you're otherwise well prepared for today. Let's be clear that eventually the business pretense for any Trump-Putin meeting was dropped, as by May 2016, Cohen, who lied to Congress about these conversations, was baldly talking to Kremlin agents about a Putin summit related to Trump's much-desired tower. 222. If you want to follow this thread also, please retweet my pinned tweet, which is the first tweet in this thread. A second reminder, if you don't want to see this thread, isn't it amazing that Twitter created a mute button for you instead of forcing you to whinge? $221. It's just also damning. This is an email from Trump's Russian fixer to Trump's attorney. Peskov is Putin's right-hand man. Peskov would like to invite you as his guest to the St. Petersburg Forum, which is Russia's Davos. It's June 16 and 19. He wants to meet you there with you and possibly introduce you to either Putin or Medvedev, as they are not sure if one or both will be there. This is perfect. The entire business class of Russia will be there as well. He said anything you want to discuss, including dates and subjects, are on the table to discuss. 222. Trump told Cohen to talk to Lewandowski about scheduling Trump for a Moscow trip to see Putin in spring 2016. We know Manafort then unseated Lewandowski and put a stop to the trip talk. DT is not doing these trips, so he could coordinate with the Kremlin secretly instead. 223. In unseating Lewandowski, it's clear Manafort would have, among other things, pitched to Trump that he couldn't be seen publicly coordinating with Russia, as Manafort would do so instead. Maybe that's why Trump told friends in January 2018 per NBC that Manafort could sink him. 224. No, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Prihodko, in touch with Trump's assistant about Trump coming to Russia for an in-campaign business trip, is the very same man who Nasya Rybka had on tape consorted with Oleg Deripaska in a very suggesting involvement in an election plot. Nasya Rybka's stock just rose significantly. This also explains why Deripaska had her arrested and dragged away screaming by the cops at the airport in Moscow, just as he was about to talk to reporters about the secret Deripaska Pritko tapes she had. Yep, look it up. So maybe this is a pretty good time to note that Trump gave Burnett-connected companies almost $24 million, nearly a quarter of the whole Trump inauguration budget during the Trump transition. Yes, I'd say it's a very good time to note that. See the below paragraph to get why. At approximately the same time that the letter was being prepared, Robert Forsman, a New York-based investment banker, began reaching out to Graf to secure an in-person meeting with candidate Trump. According to Forsman, he had been asked by Anton Kobyakov, a Russian presidential aide involved with the Roscongress Foundation, to see if Trump could speak at the forum. Forsman first emailed Graf on March 31, 2016, following a phone introduction brokered through Trump business associate Mark Burnett, who produced the television show The Apprentice. In his email, Forsman referenced his long-standing personal and professional expertise in Russia and Ukraine, his work setting up an early private channel between Vladimir Putin and former U.S. President George V. Bush, and an approach he had received from senior Kremlin officials about the candidate. Forsman asked Graf for a meeting with the candidate, Corey Lewandowski, or another relevant person to discuss this and other concrete things. Forsman felt uncomfortable discussing over email. On April 4th, 2016, Graf forwarded Forsman's meeting request to Jessica Machi, another executive assistant to Trump. 227, how's everybody doing? Forsman, Burnett's contact, and a man who wanted to link Trump to the Kremlin, was directed to Trump Jr. or Eric Trump or someone Trump absolutely trusts, confirming as if any confirmation was needed that Trump knew he needed to lie to voters about his Kremlin contacts. 229, I have to say, when you read the emails men like Forsman were sending and then their explanation of their intent, sorry, but I practice in front of countless juries, and most juries would not take these enough seriously. The intent of these people's actions is clear. Per Mueller, it took Papadopoulos under a week to tell a foreign government what a Kremlin agent, Mifsud, had told him about having Clinton's stolen emails, and we're supposed to believe he never told the campaign. When they began seeking her emails immediately after, no. Mueller left out top Trump advisor John Mashburn's claim to Congress that George Papadopoulos told the campaign what Mifsud told him about the Kremlin having stolen Clinton's emails. One of the very first questions Congress will ask Mueller is why he did this. I promise you. 232. Given that the London Center of International Law Practice turned out to be little more than a means for Mifsud to operate as a Kremlin agent, I want to know who Papadopoulos' contact there was, and how Trump's campaign got Papadopoulos within days of his hire by the LCILP. The time between Kremlin agent Mifsud's operation, LCILP, hiring Papadopoulos and Clovis, gobbling him up, and telling him Russia would be his primary job, like 2 weeks. Just one of the million-plus coincidences in the Russia case, or something more well obvious than that. Mueller credulously implies that though Trump's campaign nagged Papadopoulos previously, his job was with the obscure LCILP, and fact that Trump was being criticized for not having a foreign policy team, explains Israel expert Papadopoulos being hired to deal with Russian issues. 235, and within days of Papadopoulos, who worked for Kremlin agent Mifsud's outfit LCILP, being hired by Clovis to deal with Russia, who pops up and says, oh good, now I have a contact with a Trump campaign on Russia, Joseph Mifsud. It's like a terrible, terrible play. Oh, and Sam Clovis's research on Papadopoulos, allegedly nothing beyond a Google search. In deciding to bring him aboard as president of Canada's national security team. God, Mueller established connections between Mifsud and the IRA and the GRU. 238. It's amazing to read Papadopoulos' painfully yearning emails to the campaign as soon as it makes contact with a Kremlin agent, begging to be taken seriously and seen, but somehow we're supposed to feel that when Mifsud gave Papadopoulos the best intel ever, he kept it quiet. It's crazy that the pic I popularized long ago after finding it on Trump's campaign social media feed of Papadopoulos sitting at the March 31, 2016 TIHDC meeting with Trump, Sessions, and others is actually in the report. Thanks to @Natasha Bertrand for helping me get there. 240. Oh, I'm sorry. Does it turn out that, as I always said, there was evidence of a compromat tape and that the CIA confirmed its existence for the BBC and that British media found and reported on corroborating parts of the story? And now we have this from CNN? According to a footnote in the Special Counsel report, which released Thursday, Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal lawyer, received a text from Russian businessman Georgy Skiladze in October 2016 that said, stopped flow of tapes from Russia, but not sure if there's anything else, just so you know. What Skiladze told Mueller that tapes referring to compromising tapes of Trump rumored to be held by persons associated with the Russian real estate conglomerate Crocus Group, which had helped host the 2013 Miss Universe pageant. According to the report, the pageant was owned by Trump for years. Cohen told the special counsel that he spoke to Trump about the issue. I'm sorry, but this footnote about video content collected during Trump's November 2013 trip to Moscow vindicates this feed. I can't tell you how much grief I took about simply re-reporting what the BBC, Guardian, Telegraph UK, and others had said on the issue. Wow. 242. I'm going to continue now on, but a lot of people who caused me a great deal of pain are visibly getting the finger from me now. I'm sorry I had the full story more than you did and published it in a book and you found implausible what I thoroughly researched. I was right. 243. Many don't realize that the now multiply sourced account of Trump approving of Papadopoulos' outreach to the Kremlin makes Papadopoulos a Trump agent in his Kremlin dealings. So when the Kremlin is responding to Papadopoulos, it's responding to an agent Trump approved. 244. Moreover, we now know that the very next piece of intel Trump approved agent Papadopoulos received when he got back in touch with the Kremlin was information of the Kremlin having stolen Clinton emails. And just I say again, Papadopoulos didn't report this back or nil. Trump sent Papadopoulos as an agent to engage the Kremlin. The Kremlin passed back intel that it had Clinton emails, and Trump then used that intelligence as a valuable piece of campaign rhetoric about Clinton's emails being hacked, something that never actually happened. The extent of Papadopoulos' contact was with Kremlin agents and Mifsad's contacts with Russian government after Trump approved Papadopoulos to pursue secret conversations with the Kremlin is well beyond what any of us thought. This was constant contact and for weeks. Read this and tell me that Trump advisor John Mashburn lied to Congress when he told them that Papadopoulos transmitted what Mifsad told him about stolen Clinton emails to the Trump campaign. Read this and tell me that no attorney or investigator would believe that story. Russian government officials during his recent trip to Moscow, Mifsud also said that on the trip he learned that the Russians had obtained dirt on candidate Hillary Clinton. As Papadopoulos later stated to the FBI, Mifsud said that the dirt was in the form of emails of Clinton and that they had thousands of emails. On May 6, 2016, 10 days after that meeting with Mifsud, Papadopoulos suggested to a representative of foreign government that the Trump campaign had received indications from the Russian government that it could assist the campaign through the anonymous release of information that would be damaging to Hillary Clinton. Russian-related communication with the campaign. She was foreign contacts, campaign efforts officials, Russian government officials. Papadopoulos kept campaign officials apprised of his efforts. Note Mueller's words. The Trump campaign had received, not as Papadopoulos would have said if he kept this info secret. I received. Mueller thinks Trump's campaign knew of stolen Clinton emails in May 2016. He can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt because Papadopoulos lied. 249. This matters because if the Trump campaign knew Russia was dangling before its stolen materials, that it'd be doubly illegal to receive beginning before the Mayflower speech. Everything Trump did afterwards would be seen as the quid to that quo to get those emails. We know from Trump's own words, public and now private, he wanted those emails. So if he in fact knew before his Mayflower speech, during which he laid out Russian policy, that Russia had those emails, which he actually didn't, and he wanted them, he was being bribed. 251. I hope everyone sees why I'm focusing so much on the report's first half, not the obstruction half. That's mostly public evidence that, frankly, Congress would at best act on in conjunction with findings of non-conspiracy collusion in the months ahead. Thus, my focus on this. 252. That Papadopoulos said he'd go to Moscow off the record is yet another powerful sign that everyone on Trump's team knew that what they were doing was wrong. Wrong criminally, i.e. subjecting themselves to bribery, sure, but also wrong on national security grounds. Bookmark this footnote somehow, as you'll find out much more about Israeli efforts to connect Trump and Putin in proof of conspiracy. That's not intended as a tease. I'm noting that Israel's role in collusion is a side issue only hinted at by Mueller, but it is significant. Email Papadopoulos to Clovis, 3:29:14 p.m. Papadopoulos' email coincided in time with another message, June 1st, 2016. Coincided in time with another message to Clovis suggesting a Trump-Putin meeting. First, on May 15, 2016, David Klein, a distant relative of then-Trump organizational lawyer Jason Greenblatt, emailed Clovis about a potential campaign meeting with Beryl Lazar, the chief rabbi of Russia. email stated that Klein had contacted Lazar in February about a possible Trump-Putin meeting, and that Lazar was a very close confidant of Putin. DJTFP 0001154751516 email Klein to Clovis, 5:24 p.m. The investigation did not find evidence that Clovis responded to Klein's email or that any further contacts of significance came out of Klein's subsequent meeting with Greenblatt and Rabbi Lazar at Trump Tower. Klein 8/30/18/302 at 2. No, this is apparently around the time Fares was present with Page for a brief meeting with Russian Ambassador Kislyak, who was secretly in touch with Flynn during the presidential campaign at an RNC event. So this paragraph becomes more and more important when you add that in. Although Clovis claimed to have no recollection of attending the TAG summit, Papadopoulos remembered discussing Russia and a foreign policy trip with Clovis and Fares during the event. Papadopoulos' recollection is consistent with emails sent before and after the TAG summit. The pre-summit messages included a July 11, 2016 email in which Fares suggested meeting Papadopoulos the day after the summit to chat, and a July 12 message in the same chain in which Fares advises Papadopoulos that other summit attendees are very nervous about Russia, so be aware. 10 days after the summit, Papadopoulos sent an email to Mifsud listing Fares and Clovis as other participants in a potential meeting at the London Academy of Diplomacy. 255. Again, here we have Trump approving secret negotiations with the Kremlin in March 2016, but all those people, therefore, making sure that no communication indicates that Trump knows anything of what they're doing. This is, again, like a terrible play or terrible spycraft. Journal that he kept at the time. Those notes, which are reprinted in part below, appear to refer to potential September 2016 meetings in London with representatives of the offices of Putin and suggest that Fares, Clovis, and Papadopoulos, Walid Sami, would attend without the official backing of the campaign. No official letter, no message from Trump. These are Papadopoulos' notes from December 2016. Those who know that the grand bargain nations see proof of conspiracy include Israel and Egypt will be fascinated, as I am, but what appears to say offer Israel and Egypt in relation to a meeting with the Kremlin. September, have an exploratory committee or lose. In September, if allowed, they will blast Mr. Trump. We want the meeting in London, England. Walid Sami, no official letter, no message from Trump. They're talking to us. It is a lot of risk. Office of Putin, explore. We are a campaign. Off Israel, Egypt. Willingness to meet the FMSP with Walid/Sam. FM coming. Useful to have a session with him. Hey, anybody else here believe Papadopoulos can't read his own handwriting or interpret his own ideas? Neither do I. So the notes I just put in this thread at tweet 1256 must be important. Papadopoulos declined to assist in deciphering his notes, telling investigators that he could not read his own handwriting from the journal. Papadopoulos, 9/19/2017, 302 at 21. The notes, however, appear to read as listed in the column to the left of the image above. I'm going to stop for a minute and get something to drink.